Smart24, driving business.
Hello there, a very good morning. Thank you so much for joining us today and for watching Smart24 TV. My name is Anthony and this is Financial Markets. It's of course another edition of the #1 show of investment and saving here in East Africa. On the show, we get to analyze the different stock markets. We get to visit, of course, several performances of different stocks, especially here within East Africa and on the continent. And of course, we get to have a snippet into cryptocurrency and on the global markets as well. Remember to follow me on Twitter. That's at Anthony Sebale. And you can also follow Smart24 TV at Smart24 TV. Now, that is the handle for Smart24 TV. The show is probably brought to you by Altex East Africa. And with Altex East Africa, you can buy and sell treasury bonds in East Africa. That is in Uganda, in Kenya, and Tanzania. Simply grab your phone, dial *292# and follow the prompts. Get to subscribe, get to learn more about the products, and get to buy or sell different securities, especially bonds and exchange traded funds across East Africa. With Altex, we are saying we are regulated and we can give you access to the market with as little as 15K. That is 15,000 Ugandan shillings and above. And with that money, you can be able to save and invest and become a pro like no other. Only at Altex East Africa, where we say you can do something new. Let's get to dive right into the business of the stock exchanges in Africa. Looking across Africa, Johannesburg, Ghana, and several other stocks performed quite poorly yesterday. And by the close of the day on Tuesday, the 9th of May, most of the stocks had closed a little bit lower. And this is, of course, following the global trends. Currently, of course, the banking sector in the United States is still under the heat. And of course, Joe Biden, the president of the United States, is going to be meeting one of the people in the Congress, and that is the Speaker himself, Mr. McCarthy, to discuss the debt ceiling. Will the United States be raising or lifting their debt ceiling, which currently stands at $31 trillion US? That's the big question that many investors are, of course, looking up to. And of course, today being a Wednesday, there is a lot to expect as well concerning the data, inflation data for the month of April. We are going to be having a snippet into that later on today. So just keep tuned and we'll definitely get you up to speed. Let's start off with, of course, different stock exchanges here in Africa. Like I mentioned, that trend has been quite a decline in many of the stocks. Starting off, for example, with Nigeria. Nigeria Stock Exchange has lost at least 18, gained slightly, about 18.06 points on its all-share index, which is the benchmark of performance on the Nigeria Stock Exchange. On Tuesday, we had at least over about 112 Nigerian Stock Exchange equities participating in trade, and the day ended with 29 gainers and 17 losers on the market. Multiverse Mining and Exploration Company led the gainers with a total gain of 10% in shares that is closing at 3.41 Nigerian Nairas on the market. Multiverse Mining and Exploration Company is a Nigerian mining company engaged in the business of exploration as well as extraction and the sale and distribution of stones and other extractive solid minerals. The company's primary products include zinc, copper, gold, lead, and a couple of others like tin and iron ores. Headquartered in Lagos, the company became listed on the floor of the Nigerian Stock Exchange in October. That is on the 8th of October, 2008, and has over 4,000 shareholders. Now, Multiverse currently has a stock that is valued at 1.5 billion naira, and this is currently representing about 0.051% of the Nigerian Stock Exchange. Multiverse yesterday gained 0.34 naira on their stock price, up to 3.75. nairas closing the day after a 9.97, approximately 10% appreciation in price. The stock has at least traded 1.16 million shares in the past 24 hours and in over 38 deals, valued at 4.31 million nairas. Currently, their shares outstanding are at 426 million shares floated on the exchange and a market capitalization of 1.45 billion naira, like I mentioned. The current performance of the Nigerian multiverse exploration company currently is the fact that in the 1 week performances, they have gained at least 22.7%. Quite good performance there. And the 4.25% has been gained in the last 4 weeks and 22.5% lost in 3 months. So you can see that in the shorter term, the company is doing quite well. Shareholders' worries may be allayed by the fact that they've also gained 5% in the last 1 month. That is through the month of April to the current date. A multiverse exploration and mining company is also the 82nd most traded on stock on the Nigerian Stock Exchange. That was the biggest stock there on the Nigerian Stock Exchange. However, regarding the performance of the NGX Index, which is the benchmark index of the Nigerian Stock Exchange, it inched up at least 114.21 points, closing at 52,579 points. Elsewhere in Africa, before we get, of course, back home to East Africa, and we get to, of course, move across East Africa, and we have a look at other stocks. But let's have a look at Zimbabwe as well. Zimbabwe Stock Exchange as well did have a good movement on the day, on the second day of trading. Zimbabwe Stock Exchange has over at least 51 listings, and amongst these we have mainly the mining companies, exploration companies, and the like. On Tuesday, the company that gained most was Rio Zim, which led the gainers at a 15% share price appreciation, closing off at 230 Zimbabwe dollars on Tuesday. Delta Corporations also added 15%, and First Capital Bank added 14.99%, whereas Michaels also added at least 14.93%. The All-Share Index improved at least by 8.79% in Zimbabwe on Tuesday. Ghana Stock Exchange, on the other hand, at least gained 0.02 points, about 0% approximately, on their Tuesday tradings. Quite slight improvements there, as well as we move into the mid-week, of course, in Ghana. Let's come back to East Africa, and of course, starting off with the Uganda Securities Exchange, and have a look at what the trading looked like on Tuesday. Now, if you were with us yesterday, the stock markets were quite slow in terms of the trading volumes, in terms of the people that actually did make movements on the market. However, today it seems to be a better day and an improvement from Monday's trading. On the 8th of May, on Monday, if you remember, we did have just about 4 equities participating in trading, and the day ending with 2 gainers and over 8 losers on the market. Well, things look a little bit better for Monday tradings, as we, of course, witnessed several gainers, about 7 gainers on the market, and just about 4 losers here as well. When you look at the gainers here, Umeme Limited continued to rally the market after it further appreciated 2.9 points upwards and closed at 440.0 Ugandan shillings. The stock price is doing quite well for Umeme. And yes, investors are having no regrets for investing in Umeme, or the electricity distributor here in Uganda. Stanbic Bank Uganda also added 0.04%. And this was up to 25.01 Ugandan shillings closing price, whereas Nation Media Group added 1.41%, and that was up to 450.29 Ugandan shillings. That was the closing price. The MTN stock as well rejuvenated for the day after gaining at least 1.01 points upwards, That was to a price of 169.69 Ugandan shillings. The Kenya Airways stock also improved a 0.18 Ugandan shillings movement upwards up to 104.52 Ugandan shillings. KCB Group was amongst the bottom losers after losing at least 0.91 Kenyan shillings, and this was closing at 862.36 Ugandan shillings. Equity Bank Limited also dropped off at least 0.04 Ugandan shillings, down to 1,243 Ugandan shillings. East African Brewers Limited also dropped 0.15 Ugandan shillings, down to 4,066.21 Ugandan shillings. Centum Investments was down by 0.52 points, down to 230.33 Ugandan shillings. Those were some of the market participants and market movers as well, as far as the market snapshot here is concerned from the Uganda Securities Exchange. The markets are open right now, and you can trade with Uganda Securities Exchange. Simply go visit any stockbroker. You can go to SBG, you have UAP Old Mutual, we do have Cheaper Technologies, UAP Dyer and Blair, and as well as quite a number of other stockbrokers who can get you the stock. But opening an account is free of charge, and it's absolutely up to you to get to open that account and begin investing in the stock market. Our stock market still has a lot to do, a long way to go in order to promote the trading here in Uganda. People still have skeptics and some of the myths that have been held around the stock exchange. Things like the stock exchange is only for the rich people, people who have billions of money, which are all totally lies. I mean, they are absolute lies. You can start trading with 20,000 shillings, with 10,000 shillings, and before you know it, your stock price or your stock portfolio has gone up to 1 million. And I've seen people like that. So it's absolutely very, very crucial to be able to trade and get to save and invest. Gone are the days when we used to save in boxes and keep money under the beds. We put money to use so that money gets us returns and make more money for us. Regarding the performance of the USE market indices, yesterday but one, the index actually shed of 4.54 points and was down to 1,089.41 points. But today, there has been slight improvement as data shows currently on the Uganda Securities Exchange. Getting to look into also the treasury bond market, the corporate bonds, and so on and so forth. There's been a lot that definitely has changed on this market. And if you haven't been able to visit the Uganda Securities Exchange, please go do visit their website at www.use.org.com. When you do so, you can look at the list of the corporate bonds. There are quite a number of them, and you can have a look at some of the things that really are important for you. Government bonds are listed. I'm seeing here some of them that haven't been able to reach their maturity. Like there's one of over about 220 billion. That's a treasury bond there that is listed on the exchange. It's going to be expiring in 2028. So it's still up for grab. You can be able to take hold of it. We do have one that is expiring in 2031. This is a bond of 300 billion Ugandan shillings. You can also take hold of that one. We have one getting expired just around the corner, 2025, 120 billion. We have one getting to mature in 2025 as well, around 100 billion as well, and a couple of others. The corporate bonds, we do have quite a number of them as well, and most of them have reached their maturity as per the data I have here on my tablet, but definitely you can find treasury bills as well. And the corporate bonds include, there's one of African Development Bank that expired in 2022, and then we have one of Kakira Sugar Works that's going to be expiring this year in the month of July, on the 12th of July this year. You can also take hold of that one. The interest rate for this particular corporate bond is 12.5%. Now, what that literally means, you're going to be getting around 6.5 or 6.25% every after 6 months, because the way these bonds really work is they're longer term, but the interest is spread out in a period of 6 months. And remember, the interest rate is annual. It's an annual interest rate. So you break it into half, you get to know how much return you're going to be getting every after 6 months. This is exactly what we are seeing on the Uganda Securities Exchange. But also, my friend, if you are interested in other treasury bonds across East Africa, please do get to visit Altex East Africa. With Altex, we give you a chance to invest using mobile money, and this is through a USSD code *292#. Use that USSD code to go to the market, to go and access the market and be able to learn more as well about how these markets really work. We have a primary market and a secondary market. Most of these markets are secondary markets because primary markets are quite competitive, with competitive bidders coming in with a big sacks of money. But as on the secondary market, we can trade with as low as 15,000 Ugandan shillings. And that's only with Altex East Africa. That is where you get such beautiful deals. And that's it, my friend. Uganda. Allow me to fly over now to Nairobi and have a look at the busiest and biggest stock exchange in East Africa and see how, of course, it fared on the Tuesday tradings. Now, as for the end of Tuesday tradings, it looks quite bright on the Nairobi Securities Exchange, especially in as far as activity is concerned. Currently, the data shows that we had about 10.5 million shares that were traded in 1,800 deals that were made, and over 141 million Kenyan shillings was traded. Compared with the previous day, on Monday, when you compare Tuesday trading to Monday, there was a 192% improvement in the volumes. That's rising to 10 million, and 279% improvement in the turnover as well. 86% improvement in the deals was also recorded. A quite interesting trading for Nairobi. Now, the market saw at least 1.59, approximately 1.59 trillion Kenyan shillings that was closing as the market capitalization for the busiest stock exchange in East Africa. However, the day had 19 over 12 gainers and 28 losers, and about 45 listings participate in the day's trading. Nairobi Business Ventures led the gainers with a total gain of at least over 5.65% on the market, closing at 2.99 Kenyan shillings per share, followed by Total Kenya at 5.26% gain in price, and Williamson Tea Kenya at a 4.15% gain in price. Bamburi Cement also gained 2.78% on the market. Getting to look at the closing prices here, NBD closed at 2.99 Kenyan shillings per share, Total Kenya 22 shillings per share, and when you look at Williamson Tea Kenya at 177 Kenyan shillings, and Diamond Trust Bank 53.50 Kenyan shillings per share, and Scan Group at least 2.11% appreciation, up to 2.90 Kenyan shillings. Those were the top most gainers for the day. On the losing side, however, we had the Car and General Company come out at the bottom with a total loss of at least 6.67%, down to 28.0 Kenyan shillings per share. He was followed by Samia Africa, and Samia Africa closed at 5.94% depreciation in price, whereas Uchumi Supermarket dropped off at least 4.76%, and Sustini Tea and Coffee down by 4.03%. Surprisingly, Absa Bank Kenya came out at the top of the markets in terms of movement, and the bank recorded the biggest volume of 4.65 million shares on the market, followed by Safaricom at 3.96 million shares, and Cooperative Bank of Kenya coming in with a distant volume there at 433,000 shares, whereas KCB Group came in with a 319,400 shares volume. Regarding the performance of the market indices, the benchmark index, the NSE All Share Index declined 1.51 points, and that was down to 102.09 points, whereas the NSE 20 and the NSE 25 as well declined 0.62% and 1.38% respectively. That's the market trading from Nairobi Securities Exchange. Fairly, there was a little bit of upbeat trading. There was an upbeat in the trading, but the indices depicted quite a significant decline in the trade, as they have, of course, in the past several days on the exchange. Better days probably ahead, as of course more companies get to unveil their earnings, and we, the investors, get to assess their portfolios and see how they can be adjusted to fit into, of course, the current market conditions. Moving on to the international markets, of course, on the United States platform, the big headlines now are, of course, all eyes on President Joe Biden and the Speaker of the Congress, Mr. McCarthy, as of course they meet up to discuss the debt ceiling of the United States. Now, U.S. stocks futures edged downwards, of course, ahead of the opening on Tuesday, as investors watch highly the anticipated talks on fast approaching a debt ceiling deadline. Contracts on the S&P 500 slipped at least about 0.38%, whereas the Dow Jones Industrial Average dipped over 0.36%, and the technology-heavy Nasdaq Composite fell 0.43%. The clock is, of course, ticking for the divided U.S. Congress, as, of course, pressure is on to raise the federal government's debt ceiling, which currently stands at $31 trillion US dollars, but risks running out of cash as soon as 1st of June. That is where the situation is at. Razor-thin margins in the Congress are complicating the matter, and President Joe Biden is set to meet with the congressional leaders, of course, today. The Wall Street is also looking ahead to April's inflation reports, which serves perhaps as the mark for the, of course, the big events in this week. And headline inflation is forecast, at least by economists, to be 0.4% month over month and 5.5% from a year ago. Some economists expect energy prices as well to have likely risen during the month of April, while, of course, food prices are not anticipated to show any deceleration as they did in March. As the U.S. government, of course, gets closer to the brink of a default, nearly half of the U.S. banks are tightening their lending standards. And if companies are struggling, of course, to access the loans, they definitely might cut back on investment. And this definitely affects how the markets are going to be running and slows economic growth. The pressure is on, and of course, the leaders have a lot more to do in these few days, especially towards the end of the month of May, to see that they, of course, keep the economy in touch. Tighter credit conditions may act as a de facto, especially to the Fed hike, as, of course, JP Morgan analysts wrote on Tuesday. Meanwhile, Fed officials have officially shifted their focus to the debt ceiling debate, which currently is taking the center stage. The Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago President Austin Goolsbee also said in an exclusive interview with one of the media houses in the U.S. on Monday that the new battle comes at the worst possible time, and it just makes it extremely difficult to figure out what will be the conditions for economic growth and the job market. That's it, my friend. Thank you so much for tuning in and for watching Smart24 TV. Remember, my name is Anthony. You can follow me on Twitter at Anthony Sebale and follow Smart24 TV at Smart24 TV now. Check out OTX East Africa. Simply dial *292# and following the prompts, you can buy treasury bonds across East Africa and go, of course, enjoy your savings by making your savings work for you. I'll catch you tomorrow, friends. Same time, same place. More business coming ahead. Bye for now.
Smart24, driving business.